everybody, Jason and John here for Everyday Crypto, sponsored by CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, thanks for sitting down with me today. It's been a minute since we've done one of these. I was on vacation, then we had Labor Day and all that stuff. So hopefully you and the family had some fun.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate you as always.
All right, cool. So today's going to be kind of a fun one. Obviously, I'm going to pick your brain on a few things, but I think we get to just take a minute. We can brag a little bit today. I started looking around at the world, and I go back and I watch some of our older episodes and some recent ones. And boy, a lot of the stuff that you and I have sort of kind of thrown out there in the world is starting to come true a little bit. And I know you're real familiar with what's going on financially in the world. So wanted to pick your brain a little bit, maybe take a victory lap on some of the stuff we were right on, and kind of see where the world is falling right now in terms of crypto.
Yeah, and if I could, please, if you find any entertainment or educational value in this at all, please like and subscribe. It helps us help you, and we are not financial advisors. Always do your own research.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is so interesting, John. Man, it's nonstop. I'm watching this political 3D chess game being played out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nonstop. I've been doing this for 6 or 7 months now, just not watching this and trying to anticipate what's happening.
Right.
And you're right. We were right about so many things. So several months ago, we came out on one of these videos and said that Russia had an inside Russia speech that Putin gave.
Right.
And in that speech, Putin was very clear that he's directing his attention towards taking the global power away from America.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said something directly like, your time at number one is limited, and so just the other day, they legalized Bitcoin for international trade.
I saw that, yeah.
Iran did the same thing, which lets you know that they saw what we talked about, which was getting around U.S. and European sanctions.
Right.
They would use Bitcoin, and they are now, which is so crazy.
Sure.
And putting their oil, so globally oil is priced out in dollars.
Right.
And this puts a lot of power in the dollar because it's a constant demand on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Middle East, what was it, Iraq, yeah. When Iraq threatened to take their oil off the dollar,
right.
a lot of people think that's why we invaded, and I tend to agree. So Russia takes their oil off the dollar and puts it on the yuan, the Chinese yuan.
Right.
India has teamed up with this almost like this coalition of China, Russia, and India now, and Iran, right? Mm. And people don't realize this. India is a way bigger threat to being the next global power than China is, like way bigger. India's infrastructure and their growth and their tech abilities are far beyond any other country right now.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
So that's really interesting how that's being played out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up India. That's very, very true. And it's something that you almost don't pay much attention to because everybody is always talking China, right? So, Asia's a big place. Boy, there's some other pockets of just real growth. I do some consulting work with a shoe company, and there's factories now in Cambodia and some other places that are just crushing it, and they're growing so fast, and they're actually getting a bit of power. And you wouldn't even know it. I mean, everybody sort of has China on the brain, but there's other avenues out there. And it's interesting. That's a weird combination of countries too, right? We think of Russia, Iran, and China as sort of this new axis of evil. You wouldn't put India in that group necessarily.
That's the scary part. Like if you would have left that story alone, I wouldn't think too much about it.
Right.
You're throwing India in. India hasn't said anything in decades. They haven't been on the political stage in decades. And now all of a sudden they're choosing a side.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to remember, the globe hates America.
Yes.
We've been on top for too long. We've forced our issues on other countries. We get too involved.
Right.
So, I mean, if I wasn't American, I'd hate America too, but I love America because I'm American, right?
Right.
But India's dangerous. They're nuclear. They're extremely capable, and they're smart.
Yeah.
So that's what really scares me about that situation is India.
Well, and they've always been an ally, but the proximity of where they are in the world globally just in location makes it there's going to be spillover, right? There's going to be backdoor deals. There's going to be all kinds of stuff in this overall global look. Where do you? I mean, I know they've all sort of been mentioning Bitcoin a lot, but just crypto in general. How's that fitting into the moving pieces?
It's really interesting, John. So the fact that these major stories always have Bitcoin attached to it,
right,
blows me away. Because 2 years ago, if any government would have whispered the word Bitcoin, people would be like, "Oh my God!" Right. Now it's being said in every possible, like all the world's nations are talking Bitcoin now. Like they're trying to regulate it, trying to find out, and all these things that we've been talking about for the past year are coming into fruition. And it's really interesting. And I think the point to take away from all this, outside of the terrifying political landscape, is that although Bitcoin is priced at $20,000 right now,
right,
and it's down from $67,000, there's this bubbling power, and this thing is building up, and it wouldn't take much at this point for even if the stock market and the economy stays like horrible the next year and a half or so,
right.
It wouldn't take much to send Bitcoin through the roof. And the reason why I say that is because there's very little for sale. It's extremely scarce asset. And there's rumors right now, and they're just rumors right now, but I'm curious how true they might be, that Saudi Arabia and that whole region is thinking about going Bitcoin in order to avoid U.S. sanctions. So that's everyone's biggest fear right now. Like Saudi Arabia and everyone, like their biggest fear is if they do something America doesn't like, then America's going to declare financial warfare on them like they did with Russia.
Right.
So countries are starting to levy into how we avoid that so we can do what we want to do.
Right.
And like I said, it wouldn't take much, John. It really wouldn't. If the Saudis or if Iran or if someplace came out and said, look, we're just going full on Bitcoin at this point. All of our international trades are going to be traded out in Bitcoin, and it's going to be legal tender. And you could see where that would send Bitcoin to like astronomical numbers very fast.
Right. Well, and that being a good thing, obviously, but there's always that flip side, right? So places like Iran or any sort of these if we want to classify them as enemies of America, that takes away one of our biggest weapons, which is sanctions, right? That seems to be what we sort of lean on as a crutch. And if that's gone, it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room aside from dropping bombs or, sending troops in, which is unfortunate. So there's always going to be a flip side to everything, I think.
I'll make 2 points in that, John. That's a very good point, John. It really is. That's pretty much the point to be made there for sure.
Sure.
One, we talked, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, you had a show where I told you I listened to this MIT teacher talk about how he believed that Bitcoin was going to be used as global game theory warfare.
Right. Yes, I remember.
And I thought to myself, yeah, that's amazing, but that's probably 10 years down the road. I'm starting to see it right in front of my face.
Yep.
And that was my other point. Crap. Oh. So most people don't know this, but Japan invaded Pearl Harbor because we cut off oil to them.
Right.
And that's why they invaded. They deemed that enough of an act of war to invade Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Well, I've seen some pretty scary things here. I'll be honest with you. For one, I'm seeing major economies that are desperate. Russian economy is desperate. China's economy is desperate. The European Union, extremely desperate at this point.
Right.
I'm seeing people team up, Russia, this stuff. And now, America has a tough decision to make. We're trying to increase interest rates to decrease inflation. And Jerome Powell last month said, absolutely, we're going to keep down this road. There's more pain ahead. We are not stopping.
Right.
But if we continue down this path, we're going to drown our number one ally, which is the European Union, because with their energy costs going up like a 10x this winter because of Russia cutting off that oil, that'll demolish their economy within months, years. Like it's horrible. Yeah. So I'm seeing all these things starting to kind of Rubik's Cube their way into danger.
Sure.
Right? Like when nations are desperate, and people don't know this, people aren't aware of this, but Russia's economy It's a complete facade.
Right.
They are extremely desperate. Money is leaving Russia at an alarming rate. No one's using the ruble because it's everyone's using it wherever else they can. China's economy, same story, different picture, but same story. They are teetering on collapse. So when people get desperate, they do desperate things, and I can't help but to think that. I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like warlike activities are being lined up.
Yes, I agree. 100%. Yeah, I mean, and this might delve a little bit into the conspiracy side of things, but I do find it interesting that China sort of by proxy is buying up a lot of land near U.S. military bases. I find that interesting too. Now you can read whatever you want into that, but it does perk my ears up a little bit and go, what? So we'll see. It's very interesting to see this stuff play out. And at the end of the day, who suffers is those of us here at the bottom. So it's not generally the people at the top making these terrible decisions or whatever. But that also can be a good reason to get into crypto and protect yourself and make sure you have a sort of a bug out plan when a lot of fiat currency goes away or collapses. So.
I'll tell you what, John, if you've got a 5-year outlook, I can't think of a more asymmetric bet than Bitcoin right now.
100%. Yep. Agreed.
As these economies collapse, as their currencies follow, everyone's going to run into the one scarcest, stablest asset on earth.
Yep.
Bitcoin, it has no comparison. It really doesn't. It has no competition.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jason, thanks so much, man. This is some food for thought. Times 10. So we'll do another one of these again soon, and always enjoy picking your brain a little bit.
You got it, brother.
All right.
You got it.
All right. Take care.
You too.